chosen one, pause for a moment and listen carefully. This message is not for everyone. If you are not walking the divine path of God, if your spirit is restless when truth is spoken, you should not continue. Only God's chosen ones will feel drawn to this, and only true followers will stay. If you are still here, understand this clearly. This message reached you at the exact appointed time, not early, not late. I am speaking directly to you, chosen one. What you are about to hear is important, urgent, and life-altering. God confirmed something about your future that you may have sensed but never fully understood. By the end of this message, you will see why your life has unfolded the way it has, and what you are undeniably becoming. Stay until the end, because the final confirmation will settle something deep in your spirit. Before we go further, engage with this message. In the comments, write only one number, 777 if this resonates with your spirit, or 444 if you know this message found you on purpose. Choose only one. If this channel speaks to your calling, subscribe now, tap the bell icon, and share this message with another chosen one who needs clarity. Do not take this lightly. What you are stepping into next is not ordinary, and once you understand it, you will never see yourself the same way again. Now listen closely. God is watching how you respond to this moment now.
The hidden confirmation you've been receiving. Chosen one, long before God announces something publicly, he confirms it privately. God does not shout destiny first, he whispers it. And if you look back carefully now, with honesty and stillness, you will begin to see that your life has been filled with quiet confirmations that something different was being formed within you. Not loud miracles, not dramatic signs meant to impress crowds, but subtle, repeated moments that kept tapping your spirit when your mind was still confused, tired, or distracted. God was speaking long before you were ready to fully understand. At the time, you may not have called these moments confirmations. You probably dismissed them as coincidences, strange feelings, intuition, or unexplained shifts in direction. But God was already communicating. He always does it this way with chosen ones. Before elevation comes awareness. Before understanding comes alignment. That is why confirmation reaches the spirit first and the mind later. God knows the mind resists what it cannot control, but the spirit recognizes truth immediately. Think carefully about how often you felt nudged to move away from certain people, habits, or environments without being able to logically explain why. There were moments when something inside you quietly said, "This no longer fits," even though it once felt right. You may have tried to reason your way out of it. You may have ignored it at first. But that was not overthinking. That was discernment awakening. God was training your inner ear before trusting you with clearer, heavier instructions. You may have also noticed recurring signs throughout your journey. Certain messages repeated through different people who did not know each other. Scriptures appearing at the exact moment you needed direction. Words spoken casually that stayed with you far longer than they should have. Dreams that carried emotional weight rather than random imagery. These were not meant to impress you. They were meant to prepare you. God confirms destiny through repetition because repetition builds recognition. When something is from God, it does not visit once and disappear. It returns until it is acknowledged. Another confirmation came through discomfort. You felt out of place in systems that others seemed comfortable thriving in. Jobs felt suffocating even when they paid well. Conversations felt shallow even when they were friendly. Lifestyles that excited others left you feeling empty or restless. This was not arrogance, it was misalignment. You were never designed to fully fit into structures built only for survival, approval, or routine. Your spirit required purpose, not just stability. Chosen ones are not rebellious by nature, they are misassigned until God repositions them. That is why you often felt like you were forcing yourself to belong, smiling outwardly while shrinking inwardly, showing up physically while disengaging spiritually. God allowed that discomfort so you would stop settling for environments that could not hold your future. Comfort in the wrong place is more dangerous than discomfort in preparation. There were also seasons of confusion, times when nothing made sense, when prayers felt unanswered and clarity felt delayed. You questioned yourself, you questioned your decisions, you even questioned God. You wondered if you missed something or failed some unseen test. But understand this now, clearly and without doubt. That confusion was not punishment. It was preparation. God was emptying you of borrowed beliefs, inherited limitations, and external definitions so he could fill you with revealed truth. God often withholds explanation when explanation would create dependence. If he explained everything too early, you would cling to information instead of faith. You would rely on understanding rather than trust. So instead, he trained you to move without seeing the full picture. That is why divine confirmation often comes before understanding. You knew before you knew why you knew. Your spirit was convinced while your mind lagged behind. Spiritual fatigue was another confirmation. You grew tired in ways rest could not fix. Not because you were weak, but because you were carrying more than you were meant to carry at that stage. You were discerning too much, absorbing too much, sensing too deeply in environments that did not know how to steward you. You felt drained after interactions that energized others. That exhaustion was not failure. It was a signal that refinement was taking place. Then there was the silence. The quiet seasons where God seemed distant, where prayers felt like they hit the ceiling, where direction felt blurred and reassurance felt absent. Many chosen ones mistake this silence for abandonment. But silence is often God's way of strengthening your spiritual muscles. When God goes quiet, he is teaching you to trust what he already said instead of demanding constant reassurance. During those silent moments, you were being taught discernment over dependency. You were learning to recognize God's voice within rather than chasing it externally. That is why, even in silence, you never fully walked away. You questioned, but you stayed. You doubted, but you listened. Something held you. Something anchored you. That was confirmation. Isolation also played a role. You did not lose people randomly. Some connections fell away without explanation. Others ended painfully. Some faded quietly without closure. God was narrowing your circle before expanding your influence. Chosen ones are often isolated before they are introduced to their true assignment. Not because God wants them alone, but because he wants them undistracted. Isolation teaches you who you are without applause. It reveals what remains when validation is removed. It strips away performance and exposes authenticity. And what remained in you was faith. It may have been tired. It may have been quiet. It may have been wounded. But it was real. The fact that you are still here, still seeking, still listening, is confirmation by itself. Nothing you went through was accidental. Not the delays, not the disappointments, not the detours. Every experience trained a specific part of you. Patience through waiting. Discernment through loss, humility through misunderstanding, resilience through pressure, restraint through silence. God does not waste pain on chosen ones. He converts it into wisdom. Now you are beginning to notice something else, a subtle shift within you, less desperation, more clarity, less need to explain yourself, more peace with not being understood, less urgency to prove anything. That is another confirmation. It means alignment is happening. It means the preparation phase is nearing completion. God has already been confirming what you are becoming. Not through noise, but through pattern. Not through force, but through formation. And now that you can finally see it, you are ready for what comes next. Why God had to break you before making you this. Chosen one, this part may feel uncomfortable to hear, but it is necessary for you to understand it clearly. God never promotes what has not been processed. He never places weight on a vessel that would crack under pressure. What you experienced as breaking was not cruelty. It was precision. What felt like loss was not chaos. It was divine accuracy. Nothing in your life fell apart without permission. Nothing collapsed without intention. God was not reacting to your pain. He was engineering your future. God does not elevate unbroken vessels because unbroken vessels still carry hidden pride, fear, and dependency. These things may not look dangerous on the surface, but they become destructive at higher levels of responsibility. If God had lifted you too early, what remained unresolved inside you would have sabotaged what He was building through you. So He allowed the breaking, not to harm you, but to preserve what you are becoming. The breaking was protection disguised as loss. You lost people you believed would walk with you forever. Some drifted away quietly. Others turned against you unexpectedly. Some misunderstood you so deeply it wounded your spirit. That loss was not accidental. God was removing emotional dependencies that would have compromised your obedience later. You were loyal to people who could not follow you into your next season. If they had stayed, you would have shrunk to keep them comfortable. God will never allow chosen ones to remain bound by loyalty that limits obedience. Careers were affected as well. Opportunities ended abruptly. Doors closed without explanation. Plans collapsed just when they seemed stable. You worked hard, stayed disciplined, and still felt blocked. This was not failure. This was redirection. God does not allow chosen ones to build permanent identity inside temporary systems. Anything you leaned on for security instead of purpose had to be shaken. God will disrupt stability if stability replaces calling. Your identity itself was touched. You no longer knew who you were the way you once did. Labels that once defined you stopped fitting. Roles that once gave you confidence lost their meaning. What once satisfied you now felt empty. That confusion was intentional. God was dismantling borrowed identities so He could reveal the one He authored. You could not step into the new while clinging to definitions that were never permanent. This is where many misunderstand God. They assume breaking means destruction, but God does not destroy what He designed. He dismantles what no longer aligns. Destruction leaves nothing behind. Dismantling preserves the core while removing what is unstable. You were never erased. You were refined. What mattered most about you survived everything that fell apart. Ego had to be addressed. Not loud arrogance, but subtle ego. The need to be seen. The need to be validated. The need to be appreciated. The need to be right. These desires feel harmless, even natural, but they quietly influence decisions. They pull focus away from obedience and toward approval. God had to remove the craving for applause so you could move with authority without depending on recognition. Authority that feeds on validation cannot stand when criticism comes. Fear was also exposed. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being alone. Fear of failing publicly. Fear of succeeding and being judged. Fear keeps chosen ones stagnant because it disguises itself as wisdom. It sounds like caution. It looks like patience. But underneath, it is avoidance. God allowed situations that forced you to move without guarantees, so fear would lose its grip. Faith that has never been tested remains theoretical. Only tested faith becomes reliable. Dependency had to be broken as well. You depended on people emotionally, systems financially, routines psychologically. God does not share lordship. Anything you depended on more than Him became a liability. So He removed supports one by one. Not to leave you helpless, but to show you how strong you already were in Him. Independence from God weakens you. Dependence on God stabilizes you. You may have wondered why shortcuts were denied to you, why others advanced faster with less effort, why opportunities seemed easier for them, why your path felt heavier. God does not allow shortcuts for chosen ones because shortcuts skip formation. What you skip, you cannot sustain. God cares far more about who you become than how fast you arrive. Speed without structure leads to collapse. Every delay protected you from premature exposure. Every closed door saved you from a future breakdown. Every long season trained endurance, restraint, patience, and discernment. These qualities cannot be taught quickly. They must be lived slowly. God was building depth in you because shallow foundations cannot carry lasting influence. God also removed substitutes from your life. You were given things that felt close to your calling, but not fully aligned with it. Roles that mimicked purpose, but lacked fulfillment. Relationships that felt right emotionally, but drained you spiritually. Paths that seemed promising, but left you empty inside. These were substitutes. God allows substitutes temporarily to show you what your calling is not. Only after the substitutes are removed can the real thing be revealed. Otherwise, you would settle too early and call it destiny. God refuses to let chosen ones live beneath their assignment. He will disrupt comfort if comfort threatens calling. There were moments when you felt humiliated, times when your strength was questioned, seasons when your confidence was shaken publicly or privately. God allowed this so you would stop trusting your own understanding. Humility is not weakness. It is accuracy. It keeps power from corrupting purpose. It keeps influence from becoming entitlement. You may have felt stripped, exposed, reduced, but what was stripped was not you. It was everything that would have broken under future pressure. God removes what cannot go where He is taking you. He strips what would slow you down. He refines what will represent Him. Understand this now without doubt. God did not break you to shame you. He broke you to free you. He removed what could not come with you. He dismantled what was misaligned. He refined what would carry His presence. You are not behind. You are not damaged. You are not forgotten. You are processed. And processed vessels carry authority without arrogance, strength without cruelty, and confidence without noise. They move without panic. They lead without force. They stand without explanation. What you endured was not evidence of disqualification. It was proof of selection. Many were called, but few were processed at this level. The breaking was not the end. It was the doorway. And now that the breaking has done its work, you are finally ready to understand what you are becoming next. What you are 100% becoming, the divine identity. Chosen one, now we speak plainly. This is the moment many sense but few understand. You are not becoming more religious. You are not becoming louder, flashier, or more visible for the sake of attention. You are becoming a living instrument. That is the difference. A believer follows teachings. A living instrument carries presence. God is not shaping you to talk about Him only, but to move with Him. This is why your journey never fit neatly into religious boxes. You respected faith, but routine never satisfied you. You honored truth, but empty repetition drained you. God was not training you for performance. He was forming you for alignment. Religious activity focuses on outward behavior. Spiritual authority flows from inward transformation. And authority cannot be faked, rushed, or borrowed. You are becoming someone whose life speaks before your mouth opens. That is why discernment has always been strong in you. You sense atmospheres, you read intentions, you feel when something is off, even if everything looks right. This was not learned, it was imparted. Discernment is not suspicion, it is clarity. And God gives it to those He trusts with influence. You may have wondered why certain things bothered you that others ignored, why compromise felt heavy to you while others adjusted easily, why silence sometimes felt safer than conversation.